U.S. Navy just unleashed another carrier. On Iran, 2 carriers, 1 region, and a country that just declared it controls the world's most contested waterway. But tonight, something changed beneath the surface. A second American strike group is now moving into position, quietly, deliberately, while Tehran insists this is nothing, a coincidence, nothing to see here. But numbers don't lie, and neither does a fleet on the move. What happens next in the Strait of Hormuz could reshape everything, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Iran should be worried. Welcome back to the Siege War. Now, before we go any further, if you're one of the folks who's been quietly watching these videos, learning what's really happening around the world, and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, consider this your gentle nudge. Think of it like leaving a note on the door so you never miss the next one. It costs nothing, takes 2 seconds, and it means a great deal to this channel. And we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments below. Let's see just how far this story is reaching. Now, let's get into it. It started with a claim from Tehran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced that no tanker moves through the Strait of Hormuz without Iran's permission. No warning, no negotiation, just a declaration. But somewhere in the waters near the Strait of Malacca, something else was already happening. A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier was turning west. A cruiser and a destroyer moved alongside it. A full air wing sat ready on its deck. This was not a small ship. This was not a quiet gesture. This was the United States Navy answering Iran's words with steel. The carrier making this move is the USS George Washington. It had been stationed in Japan, the only American carrier permanently based there. It left its port in Yokosuka. It crossed through the Singapore Strait. And now it is heading toward the Indian Ocean, straight into the same region where tensions with Iran are already boiling over. A Navy official confirmed the ship's position in the Strait of Malacca. This carrier is now about a week away from arriving in the theater. Once it arrives, there will be 2 American aircraft carriers in the region at the same time. Not 1. 2. This is what people are calling a rotation. Officially, that is true. Carriers do rotate in and out. Crews serve for months at a time, and then a new crew takes over. This keeps sailors fresh, keeps equipment maintained, keeps operations sharp. But the timing here tells its own story. This rotation is happening exactly as Iran raises its threats about the Strait of Hormuz, exactly as Iran claims it now controls the flow of oil and tankers through that passage. And exactly as the United States has already built what many are calling a wall of steel around the region. That wall is not just a phrase. It represents 59 commercial ships redirected, 3 ships disabled, 2 ships boarded, all part of a blockade that has already reshaped shipping in the Gulf. Now, a second carrier is joining that effort. Iran's official position is that this move means nothing. Officials there call it a coincidence. Nothing to worry about, they say. Everything is fine, they say. But military analysts see something different. They see a message being sent, ship to ship, without a single word needed. Because when one carrier already controls the skies and waters near Iran, and a second one joins it, the balance of power does not just shift a little, it shifts dramatically. The first carrier already in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln, has been on station for more than 260 days. That is an extraordinary length of time for any carrier crew to remain deployed. Its aircraft have flown more than 10,000 sorties. Its weapons have released 1.5 million pounds of ordnance during this conflict so far. These are not small numbers. These numbers show a crew and a ship working at a pace few carriers have ever sustained. And instead of preparing to leave, the Navy is sending reinforcement, not a replacement. In addition, for Iran, this presents a serious problem. Its Navy has already struggled to challenge American ships in the Gulf. Its Air Force has been degraded throughout this conflict. Its main tools left are fast attack boats, drones, and mines, weapons of harassment, not weapons that can challenge 2 carrier strike groups. Yet Iran continues to insist it holds control over the Strait of Hormuz. It continues to insist that ships cannot move without its approval. But harbor pilots in Bandar Abbas, Iran, have reportedly not touched a ship's wheel in 6 days. If Iran truly controlled the strait, ships would still be moving through it under its command. Instead, shipping has slowed to a level not seen before this conflict began. This is the situation as the USS George Washington makes its way west. Not officially declared as reinforcement for combat, but arriving at the exact moment Iran is making its boldest claims yet. 2 carriers, 1 strait, 1 country insisting it is not worried, and a growing question hanging over the region. What happens when the second carrier finally arrives? While the second carrier moved through the Strait of Malacca, another battle was already underway. Not with missiles, not with jets, but with words. For 2 days straight, a story spread across Iranian media outlets widely understood to serve as mouthpieces for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The claim was simple, but serious. that the crew aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln was falling apart. Not that the ship had been damaged, not that a mission had failed, but that the people serving aboard it were breaking down. It was a claim designed to spread doubt, designed to make American sailors and the public back home question what was really happening at sea. Then, late on a Thursday night, something unusual happened. U.S. Central Command did something it almost never does. It published a fact card. 6 headlines, labeled false, laid out in plain sight, several of them traced directly back to Iranian state-aligned media. But instead of arguing back with opinions, Central Command answered with numbers. The re-enlistment rate aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln stood at 84.4%, among the highest of any carrier in the United States Navy. That is a number worth sitting with for a moment. A crew supposedly falling apart, choosing in overwhelming numbers to sign up for more time in uniform. That does not happen on a ship in crisis. It happens on a ship where people believe in what they are doing. The carrier has now spent more than 260 days at sea. Its aircraft have flown more than 10,000 sorties, and its weapons have released 1.5 million pounds of ordnance during the conflict so far. No service members aboard the carrier have died during this deployment. One sailor did go overboard on August 3rd, but that sailor was recovered quickly and safely. A single incident, handled properly, does not equal a crew in collapse. Central Command's closing statement was direct. It said the false reporting was a disservice to the men and women in uniform and to their families waiting at home. That statement mattered, because behind every one of these headlines are real people. Sailors serving far from home. Families back home reading news that claims their loved ones are suffering when the facts say otherwise. The Secretary of War addressed the claims directly while traveling in Panama. He stated that conditions aboard the carrier had been completely misrepresented. He also said he wants sailors rotated home as quickly as anyone does, because that is simply how deployments work. Crews rotate in, crews rotate out. That is not a sign of failure. It is standard practice in any extended military operation. In fact, that same rotation is exactly why a second carrier is now on its way to the region, not as a replacement out of necessity, but as part of a plan already underway before the disinformation campaign even began. This is not the first time false narratives have surfaced during this conflict, and it is unlikely to be the last. Information warfare has become as much a part of this standoff as ships and aircraft, each side trying to shape how the world understands what is happening in the Gulf. But there is a difference between a claim and a fact. A claim can be repeated for clicks and attention. A fact stays the same no matter how many times someone tries to spin it. An 84.4% re-enlistment rate is a fact. 10,000 sorties is a fact. A sailor recovered safely after falling overboard is a fact. These numbers do not support a story of collapse. They support a story of endurance. A crew that has been at sea for nearly 9 months, still flying, still fighting, and still choosing to stay. As the second carrier moves closer to the region, this disinformation campaign reveals something important. It shows how seriously Iran is treating the pressure it is under, because a country confident in its position does not need to invent stories about an enemy falling apart. It only needs to wait. Iran did not wait, and that choice may say more about its position than any headline it tried to publish, while the numbers battle played out in public. Something far quieter was happening on the flight deck itself, because the story of this carrier standoff is not only about ships, it is about what sits on top of them. The aircraft, the systems, the technology few people ever see up close. And this air wing is not the same one people picture from decades past. It is not the air wing from old war movies or history books. This is something newer, something built for a different kind of fight. At the center of it sits the F-35C Lightning II, a carrier variant of the fighter, built with bigger wings, folding wingtips, and reinforced landing gear. Made to land on a moving flight deck at night in rough conditions, it stands as the only fifth-generation fighter in the world capable of doing that. But the aircraft itself is only part of the story. What makes it dangerous is what is built inside it. A distributed sensor system gives the pilot a spherical view around the aircraft, not just what is ahead, but everything around it, all at once. An electronic warfare suite tracks anything sending out a signal. Drones, missiles, radar systems preparing to fire. All of that information becomes pictures fed directly to the pilot. Not 6 separate problems to figure out. One clear picture to act on. That is what makes the F-35 more than just a fighter jet. It sees, it understands, and it shares what it sees with everyone around it. Flying alongside it are the Super Hornets, twin-engine aircraft with 10 hardpoints for weapons, the aircraft that has carried American naval air power for 25 years, reliable, proven, still central to every mission. Alongside them flies the EA-18G Growler, built on the same frame as the Super Hornet. But instead of extra fuel and weapons, it carries jamming equipment and anti-radiation missiles. Its job is simple to describe, but difficult to master. Make an enemy radar operator believe his own equipment is lying to him. Confuse him. Blind him. Take away his ability to track anything at all. Above all of this flies the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. It may be the least dramatic aircraft on the flight deck, but it may also be the most important. A radar dome on its back scans the skies for miles in every direction. It can detect threats launching from Iranian territory, and it can share that information instantly with every other aircraft in the sky, turning a handful of individual jets into a single connected network. But even with all of this power, there is a limitation few people talk about. Fuel. Right now, up to a third of all Super Hornet missions are spent doing one job only, refueling other aircraft in the sky. That means fewer Super Hornets available for their main purpose, strike missions. This is where something new enters the picture. The MQ-25 Stingray, an unmanned aircraft built specifically for aerial refueling. On April 25th, the first production version of this aircraft completed a full flight on its own. Taxiing, taking off, flying, and landing, controlled from a ground station. Low-rate production was approved in May of this year. Its goal is to deliver at least 14,000 pounds of fuel, 500 nautical miles from the carrier. That range matters because it means aircraft can strike farther and stay in the air longer. This is not just a future concept either. Back in 2021, an early version of the Stingray successfully refueled an F-35C in the air, proof that a drone can already deliver fuel to one of the most advanced fighters ever built. There is no confirmed MQ-25 currently operating from this carrier, but the technology is moving fast enough that it may reach full deployment sooner than its planned 2029 timeline. Every piece of this air wing depends on the others. Fighters that strike, aircraft that jam radar, aircraft that watch the sky, and soon aircraft that refuel without a pilot at all. Together, they form the real engine behind the blockade some are calling the wall of steel, because a blockade cannot survive on ships alone. It needs eyes in the sky, weapons ready to fire, and fuel to keep them there. As the second carrier moves closer to the region, this air wing becomes even more significant, because soon there will not be one of these air wings operating in the region. There will be two. While two carriers close in from different directions, Iran continues to send a very different message to the world. Confidence, control, certainty. But look closer, and the picture tells a different story. An Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps spokesman recently claimed that American statements about ships moving normally through the region are nothing but lies. A bold statement, but a strange one to make, considering the numbers on the water. 2 aircraft carriers now stationed in the region, with a third on its way. Fighter jets far more advanced than anything in Iran's current air force. Iran's own air power, meanwhile, relies mainly on drones and ballistic missiles, weapons that can strike from a distance but cannot challenge a modern carrier strike group directly. Despite this gap in strength, Iran continues to insist it commands the Strait of Hormuz, that no tanker moves without its permission, but actions on the ground tell a very different story. Harbor pilots stationed in Bandar Abbas, Iran, have reportedly gone 6 days without guiding a single ship. If Iran truly controlled that passage, ships would still be moving under its direction. Instead, they are not moving at all. At the same time, the financial cost of this standoff continues to grow. The blockade, referred to as the Wall of Steel, is now estimated to be costing Iran roughly $500 million a day. That is not a number that can be sustained indefinitely. Every day the blockade continues, the pressure on Iran's economy tightens further, and still, Iranian officials continue to describe the situation as normal, as though nothing unusual is happening at all. This pattern is not unique to Iran alone. In fact, similar tension is unfolding in other parts of the world at the very same time. In Russia's Leningrad region, an air raid alert sounded in the early morning hours. By sunrise, a regional governor was reporting fire at an oil port. Drone strikes had hit the area overnight, with dozens reportedly shot down before reaching their targets. That port reportedly handled around 700,000 barrels of oil per day last year, a significant blow to a critical piece of energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, in eastern Latvia, a different kind of alert went out. NATO fighter jets on quick reaction duty were scrambled before dawn. They intercepted and destroyed a drone believed to have come from Russian territory. No official statement followed from Russia acknowledging the incident, but the pattern is becoming familiar. Russia's largest oil terminal on the Baltic Sea has now caught fire 6 separate times this year. Different regions, different militaries, but the same underlying theme. Energy routes are becoming targets. Oil and gas are being disrupted, not always through open declarations of war, but through pressure, denial, and quiet escalation. The situation with Iran fits this same broader pattern. A country that depends on controlling a key waterway for its economic survival, facing a growing blockade it cannot break, and now facing not one, but 2 American aircraft carriers positioned in the region at the same time. Iran's public statements suggest defiance, but the numbers suggest something closer to desperation. A navy that cannot move freely, an air force that cannot challenge modern fighters in the sky, an economy losing hundreds of millions of dollars every single day. And now, the arrival of new refueling technology that could soon extend American air power even further across the region. None of this guarantees what happens next. Wars, blockades, and standoffs like this rarely move in straight lines. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The balance of power in the Gulf is shifting, carrier by carrier, day by day. As the USS George Washington completes its journey into the region, the United States will have 2 full carrier strike groups operating near Iran at once, a level of naval presence rarely seen outside of major, declared conflicts. Iran insists this changes nothing, but history suggests that when this much military power gathers in one place, something eventually gives. The question now is not whether the pressure will continue to build. It is how much longer Iran can withstand it before something breaks.